You see them everywhere on social media. Designer bags, luxury cars, private jets, five-star hotels. Everyone seems to be living their best life while you're wondering how they afford it all. But here's what nobody tells you. Most of it isn't real. And the ones who are actually spending that money, they're broke. I'm going to show you exactly how this works. And trust me, once you understand the game, you'll never look at Instagram the same way again. Let's start with the most obvious trick. Rental culture has exploded in the last 5 years. There are companies that will rent you a Lamborghini for a day for about $500. A Rolex, $50 a day. That designer handbag your favorite influencer is holding probably came from a luxury rental service for $75. They pose with it for an hour, take 200 photos, and return it the next day. But it gets better. There are actual studios in Los Angeles, Miami, and Dubai that exist solely for creating fake wealth content. For $200 an hour, you can pose inside a private jet that never leaves the ground. You can take photos in front of a mansion you'll never own. You can sit in a Rolls Royce parked in a warehouse. These places are booked solid every single day because the demand is that high. Now you might be thinking, surely some of these people are actually rich, right? Sure, some are. But even the ones making good money are often living on the edge of financial disaster. There's a concept called lifestyle creep, and it's destroying people faster than they can make money. The more you earn, the more you spend, and suddenly you need to maintain an image that costs more than you're bringing in. I talked to a former luxury car salesman who told me something wild. He said about 60% of the people buying high-end luxury cars were financing them with loans they could barely afford. We're talking about people making $70,000 a year driving a $200,000 car. The monthly payment is eating half their income, but they need that car for the image. Credit card debt in America hit $1 trillion in 2023. Let that sink in. These aren't just everyday expenses. A huge chunk of that is people trying to keep up appearances. Designer clothes, expensive dinners, luxury vacations, all financed on credit cards with interest rates above 20%. Here's something most people don't realize. That influencer posting from a 5-star resort in Bali, they probably didn't pay for it. Hotels and resorts have discovered that giving away free rooms to influencers is cheaper than traditional advertising. If someone has 50,000 followers, they can often negotiate a completely free stay in exchange for posting content. The hotel gets exposure, the influencer gets content, and you get fooled into thinking they're wealthy. The same thing happens with restaurants, with clothing brands, with everything. There's an entire economy built around trading access for exposure. I know influencers with 100,000 followers who haven't paid for a meal in 2 years. They eat at expensive restaurants 5 nights a week, and it costs them nothing but a few Instagram posts. But let's talk about the really clever tricks. Photoshop and AI have made it possible to fake wealth without spending a single dollar. You can literally add a luxury watch to your wrist in a photo. You can change the background to make it look like you're in a mansion. You can make a cheap car look expensive with the right filters and angles. There are entire tutorials on YouTube teaching people how to do this. Then there's the group pooling strategy. 5 friends will split the cost of renting a yacht for a day. It costs them each $300, but they walk away with content that makes them look like millionaires. They'll post those photos for months, spreading them out so it looks like they're living that lifestyle regularly. Nobody knows they all went Dutch on a 4-hour rental. The travel industry has caught on too. There are now budget airlines that offer business class flights for just slightly more than economy, specifically targeting people who want to post about flying business class. The actual experience isn't much different, but the photo opportunity is what matters. I've seen people pay an extra $100 just to take a selfie in a business class seat, then post it with captions about living the high life. Let's talk about the car situation in more detail because it's one of the biggest scams. Luxury car leases are designed to make expensive cars seem affordable. You can lease a Mercedes for $600 a month. That sounds reasonable until you realize you're paying $7,000 a year for a car you'll never own, and at the end of 3 years you have to give it back with nothing to show for it. But for those 3 years you look successful. Some people take it even further. They'll lease a luxury car, use it as a prop for their content, write it off as a business expense, and then the lease becomes a marketing cost. The car literally pays for itself through the image it creates, which leads to brand deals and sponsorships. It's a cycle that only works as long as people keep believing the image. Now here's where it gets dark. There are people going into serious debt to maintain these fake lifestyles, and they're stuck. They've built an entire personal brand around wealth they don't have. If they stop posting the luxury content, they lose followers. If they lose followers, they lose sponsorship deals. If they lose sponsorships, they can't pay their bills. They're trapped in a cycle of performing wealth to avoid financial collapse. The really wealthy people, the actual millionaires and billionaires, usually don't flaunt it the way you'd expect. Warren Buffett lives in the same house he bought in 1958 for $31 $1,500. Mark Zuckerberg drives a Honda Fit. The truly rich don't need to prove anything because their bank account does the talking. There's actual research backing this up. A study from 2021 found that people who post frequently about luxury items and experiences on social media were more likely to have high levels of debt and low savings. The people screaming the loudest about their success are often the ones struggling the most. But why do people fall for it? Because we're wired to compare ourselves to others. Social media has created a highlight reel culture where everyone only shows their best moments. You're comparing your everyday reality to someone else's carefully curated fantasy, and that's not a fair comparison. The pressure to keep up is real. Young people especially feel like they need to achieve certain markers of success by certain ages. You should have a nice car by 25. You should be traveling the world by 30. You should own a home by 35. These arbitrary timelines create anxiety and push people to fake it until they make it, except most of them never make it. They just get better at faking. Here's a trick that'll blow your mind. Background actors and props. Some influencers hire people to pose as their staff, their friends, their significant others just for photos. They'll rent expensive-looking furniture and stage it in a regular apartment to make it look luxurious. They'll borrow jewelry from friends, take photos, and return it the same day. Every single detail can be fabricated. The business class flight trick has another layer too. Some people buy refundable business class tickets, take photos at the airport and on the plane, then refund the ticket before the flight takes off. They're out maybe a small cancellation fee, but they get the content they need. Airlines are starting to crack down on this, but it's been happening for years. Let's talk about designer goods, because this is a massive industry of fakes. The replica market is worth over $400 billion globally. You can buy a fake Gucci bag that looks identical to the real thing for $50. Most people can't tell the difference in photos. Influencers know this. Some of them built entire wardrobes of convincing fakes, and nobody would ever know unless they physically inspected the items. Then there's the credit card churning community. These are people who open new credit cards constantly to get sign-up bonuses and rewards points. They use these points to book luxury hotels and flights, making it look like they're spending thousands when they're actually gaming the system. It's technically legal, but it requires perfect credit management, and one mistake can destroy your credit score. The restaurant scene is particularly fascinating. High-end restaurants know that influencers bring them business, so they'll often comp meals or offer huge discounts in exchange for posts. An influencer can eat a $300 meal for free just by tagging the restaurant and posting a few stories. They do this multiple times a week, and suddenly they look like they're living lavishly when they're actually broke. Some people have turned this into an actual job. They call themselves lifestyle curators or brand ambassadors, but really they're professional fakers. They've built entire businesses around maintaining an illusion of wealth to attract real brand deals. The irony is that once they get enough real deals, they can actually afford the lifestyle they were faking, but by that point they're so deep in the performance they can't stop. The psychology behind this is called social comparison theory, and it's been studied for decades. We determine our own worth based on how we stack up against others. Social media has amplified this to an extreme level. Instead of comparing ourselves to our immediate social circle, we're now comparing ourselves to millions of people worldwide, and it's making us miserable. Here's what nobody wants to admit. The people you think have it all figured out are usually just as confused and scared as you are. They're just better at hiding it. That confident exterior, that perfect life, it's a mask. Behind the scenes, they're dealing with the same doubts, the same financial stress, the same anxiety about the future. The truly dangerous part is how this affects young people. Kids growing up with social media think this level of luxury is normal. They think everyone should be rich by 25. They think success means designer clothes and expensive cars. They're being set up for disappointment and financial disaster because they're chasing an illusion. So what's the solution? First, understand that social media is a highlight reel, not reality. Second, stop comparing your chapter 1 to someone else's chapter 20. Third, focus on building real wealth, not the appearance of wealth. Real wealth is having money in the bank, investments growing, debt paid off. That's not sexy for Instagram, but it's what actually matters. The fake rich are everywhere, and they're getting better at the performance every day. But now you know the tricks. You know how the game works. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. That's your power. You get to choose whether you want to play the game or build something real instead.